said, you know what? No. And I have a 150 to 600, so I'll just bring it over. So I did. Next
Yeah.
time he came over, brought. I have the gear, all of it, every focal length you could need. So at his house, across the street, literally, he lives across this big, massive lake. Um, and then one of his neighbors has a big, boathouse dock area. So we went there and literally shooting with the A1 150 to 600, and then it's took my lens and slapped it on his camera because he's trying to debate whether he wants the lens or whatever, and it's convenient. It's nice that he shoots with Sony. Um, and then he captured a photo, crisp and sharp, and it was nice. He loved the photo, and everything started making sense to him. What's nuts is I can zoom in to 900, well, 600 full frame, and then crop in this 900. So
Yeah, it's
I'm
great to have
seeing
that
stuff
kind
I
of
can't
reach.
even see. Yeah, it's amazing. Hey, Jess.
Morning.
Alright, cheers. And beep beep. You working on anything today, Jez?
Just my better well-being.
Isn't it no work on?
No. Well, I haven't finished sorting the office out yet, so.
Okay.
Oh, yesterday's conversation about teaching how to photograph models and things, as opposed to, the photography of it.
Yeah.
There's a Peter Coulson link there.
No, not how to
him.
photograph models, how to interact.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not the technical photography.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Peter Coulson stuff sprung to mind actually because when he does his, photography things with models, he touches on that occasionally. It's not the main thing, but his thing sprung to mind a bit.
I don't know. The name rings a bell, but I don't know why.
Well, it's in the general chat at the moment. One of his videos. He's an Aussie photographer who witters on with his dippy assistant helping him out.
He usually likes to capture implied nude, a lot of black and white from what I've seen.
Yeah, he's a good photographer.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of his videos in the general link.
Oh my god! Hang on, Jez. I've had to crank everything up to 50 billion to hear Kev, and now you've turned up. I've got to turn everything down again.
Well, you can adjust it individually.
Yeah, I have. He's got 200, and I've had to crank everything up. But you're fucking deafening me. Let me just reset that to normal.
So, am I loud today?
No, you're bog standard. Kev is ultra quiet.
Yeah, Kev's quiet. Me as well.
To direct or not to direct.
And he's turned up a fair bit.
Yeah.
I'm
really old problem.
Low on this server. I don't know what's like every other one.
Okay. Pretty confident it's your mic settings, Kev. It's nothing to do with this server.
I don't know.
Everybody else is just being polite. Jez, can you just give us a quick 5 count?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, that's less painful. Lovely. As you do a nice quiet 5 count.
Puberty, so yeah.
And then come back in with like, hello again!
Are your ears on the ceiling yet? Eh.
I'm going to end up picking every single one of this guy's routine frames. I just know it. Came out and performed to essentially the Monster Mash. It's just a showcase from the other day. And this guy is just ridiculous. He's so good. So good. He at one point in the routine, in time with the music, he was spinning hands free around the bottom bar of the hoop, just rotating round it over and over again. I don't know how he was generating the momentum to do it. It was ridiculous. Like, just absurd. Too good. Too good.
Let's have a look at him.
Wearing for that super distorted John Cena sound lip. Asterisk clip.
Super hard routine to photograph though, because it was completely unconventional. And so most of the moves or positions you'd ordinarily wait for or try to, catch weren't there because he wasn't doing a series of moves. He was just flinging himself into all kinds of crazy shapes. And so I had to basically, because his musicality was on point. So basically what I ended up doing was forgetting what I was looking at, basing it on the music. Yeah, just shooting to the music. And with the professionals, that works really well because they'll nail
good
it.
Dancers, that's what I always do.
Yeah, and it makes it so much easier. And I've got a really good sense of rhythm anyway. So it's very easy for me to just keep that on. Click, click, click. You can ignore the camera lag. You can ignore what the performer's doing. Everything. You can just hit it on the beat. If you're dealing with the amateur performers, they're offbeat. They're really hard to shoot because you've got to get. Yeah, you've got to get everything. You've got to wait for them to do everything. You can't just leave it to the music. I hate that. I can hate that.
There's a chap who photographs dance socials around these parts, and he noticed when he photographing the other day that he doesn't listen to the music,
right?
Because he could easily, people do predictable things to a certain extent if they know the music, or have a musical feel, even if they don't know the actual track. And he was shooting in between those bits. And he was just missing things completely.
Right, because he was trying to hit the music. Sorry, he was hitting the music. Sorry,
randomly, as far as I could tell.
Right. Yeah, you don't want random.
No, because the certain part of the dance, you kind of split apart and you hit an end point. It's not like a breakaway. And that's a good time to shoot. And he was kind of doing in between bits where it's kind of not a particularly good photography anyway. But something I noticed, his timing was way off as well.
Yeah, I succeed. Some performers are just so easy to photograph because I don't know if it's because they have great musicality or it just so happens that my interpretation of the music, right, is the same as theirs, right?
Well, you can only do that if you're both listening to the same thing.
Well, we're both listening to the same thing. As whether or not we're hearing the same thing is, I suppose, the
people with no RYTHM should be banned from dancing. No exceptions.
Whether we're hearing the same thing is a different matter, right? In a sort of a slightly subtle muso kind of sense, right? Like this girl here, she is amazing, right? Her music choice and her performance, every single time I've seen this girl perform, it's been hard to shoot because I want to watch the performance because she's amazing. She's so much fun to watch, right? She just absolutely commits and everything is on bang on point, like just bang on point every time. It's so easy to shoot because her rotation is on point. Like she comes past the crowd at exactly the right point every time. So when she drops her big moves, they drop on the beat, and the rotation of the cube, which is just free spinning, by the way, it's not motorized or anything, it's just momentum generated. It's always there, right? It's astonishing, frankly. I mean, she's a fucking bona fide professional, so it should be. But you know, she's so easy to shoot on stage. She knows exactly where the crowd is the whole time. You know, it's really easy to shoot. And she's a metalhead, so half of her routines are set to like heavy metal, which for me makes them a lot better to listen to than the ones that are set to generic Selfridges advert backing tracks. I'm gonna do all soft and moody, and this lass will come out and do something to Sepultura, say Napalm Death or whatever. I think people with no rhythm shouldn't be banned from dancing. People who don't have any rhythm should be told by the people teaching them dancing that they have a shortfall in the rhythm department and work to address it.
I had a friend who came clubbing with us and he was terrible. I told him, just count to 4, Doug. Just try it. And you could see him mouthing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And he was in time, finally.
Yeah. It's simple, Brian. Make things happen on the 4. Yeah.
Well,
and
it depends on the
yeah, track. Of course. If it's a waltz, that's going to go horribly wrong.
Well, the funk music is on the 1.
Yeah. A divisor of 4.
Most music's an 8 count anyway, but for simplicity's sake, for something like this, 1 to 4 was enough.
Yeah. You can imagine that, can't you?
Phrase is another thing.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Could be all over the boat trying to do a waltz on the 4th beat. That'd be I'd actually like to see that. Because you get those drummers that'll do like double beats in like 5/8 and 3/7 time or whatever, just as a technical wankery exercise. And imagine doing a waltz where you were dropping things on the 4th. He had it coming. Oh, absolutely horrific lighting on this one. Can we have it lit only by red LEDs from the front, please?
Oh, fucking hell. Red LEDs. Jesus.
Well, just look at it.
LEDs full stop are awful, but
looks
red
like
lighting is...
Ugh, red lighting is bad. Red LEDs are the worst. Because they're literally... it's like...
shocking.
It's just being lit by a laser, basically, so it's completely monochromatic. The camera sensor's got nothing. Absolutely nothing to work with. It's just... terrible. Right? It's so bad.
Well, the LED things can prove challenging. I've seen blue ones that it just blows the sensor so easily.
Yeah. This wasn't as good as their performance last year, in my opinion. Well, 3 years ago. Sorry, not last year, because they did the full Monty 3 years ago, and that was great because they all came on in fake mustaches dressed as postmen.
My game is blue LEDs in beer.
Oh, it's fantastic. But these, geez, it's just the red light, man. There's nothing there. Like, there's nothing to work with.
You thought about black and white?
I might have to hit the art button on these, frankly. Chicago, weren't the posters for Chicago in black and white?
Don't know.
I think the original artwork for
Chicago.
Yeah. Two.
You should have a word with the lighting people and say red is red for photographs.
The thing is, every time I do that, unfortunately, due to circumstances, I missed the lighting tech run because they decided to start the lighting tech run really, really early, and then just have this massive 3-hour gap between the lighting tech run and the performance. So I couldn't get there for the lighting tech run, and then when I got there, nothing was happening for hours because they'd done the lighting tech run and nothing was happening, and it was like, oh well, great. But anyway, yeah, whenever I interject, if I can't get to the performers to tell the performers what to do, the lighting guy won't budge off what the performers have asked him for.
No, that's fair enough because that's what they want, isn't it?
Yes. So if my point is, if I don't get to the performers to explain to the performers that if you ask for red lighting, ask for red and white lighting, right? Or red lighting and a wash, right? It's going to look like shit, right? Because there's nothing you can do. There's literally nothing you can do. And the lighting guy will go, well, they've asked for red. I was like, yeah, but you're the lighting guy. Make red look good, right? You know, and the way you make red look good is not by just using pure red. You know, if you watch Chicago, if you watch a stage excerpt from Chicago, they don't just use red light, right? That's not how it works.
The only time you ever use just red lights in a dark room?
Basically, yes. And I think that
films all look terrible.
The overly bright blue LEDs and equipment is super irritating. The difference between the spotlight intensity and the wash intensity at this performance was out of balance as well. You can see here, like, the spotlight's way too hot. And so basically, yeah, I need to be there for the light tech run next year. Simple as. There's no excuse. Just got to be there and sit there all day, because otherwise the images are going to come out wanky. Something I discovered last night, which was a misconception I'd been carrying for a long time. I looked up the high ISO performance of a Fuji GFX 50S. Holy smokes. Holy damn. Mate, fucking...
You don't have to put on the red light.
Jesus. Yeah, Roxanne, calm your tits. Wow. Right? 4 stops easily better than an A7S2. Handily 4 stops, if not more.
That's rather good.
Yeah, it's clean up to ISO 128,000, basically. It's astonishing, absolutely astonishing, and it retains dynamic range at that point.
Oh,
I was just blown away.
I've never heard that mentioned before, but I'm guessing people who use it don't use it in that way.
No, because they're often shooting studio. They're not shooting low light stuff, or they're not shooting events where you need whomping great ISO, right?
Yeah, I like a camera with a 23mm lens. 23. It's their wide lens, and it doesn't look wide. You get the coverage, but it just doesn't look wide. It's really impressive.
Hmm. Oh, so it's very linear.
Yeah.
23mm.
I think it's around. I'm trying to think. It might be 22 mil in 35 mil terms wide, but might even be wider. But it just, you look through it and think, oh, that's covering a lot, but it doesn't look wide. Yeah, it's a very, very nice lens.
Just digging through. I've just got to unblock some JavaScript by the look of it. Question is, how many of these JavaScript files are advertising bollocks and how many are... here we go. ISO 6400 is just nuts. Right, okay, so... as you can see, no, I can't see because your weird...
It's the 50S, is it?
95% is bollocks.
50R... I don't know the difference between the 50R and the 50S.
All right. Because the 50S is the first one that came out years ago, six years ago. It's 100
50R
now,
has a built-in AF assist lamp.
Is it? A what? It's a Mark II 50S.
I don't know. I've no idea which. There's a bunch of foolishly named versions.
And then there's 100 as well.
Usable prints up to ISO 25,000.
The 50 Mark II might be better now because that's quite recent. I haven't realised.
DxO do a dynamic range chart, right? And they haven't done one for this camera, right? And I want a chart that shows the dynamic range versus the ISO, because if the dynamic range dies as the ISO goes up, it's not any more useful, really.
Unless, of course, it gives you a nice look.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons film looked good is because of its flaws. How it didn't render things like we see them, and that's why it looked nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
HDR images are more like we see things, but we don't like them as much.
10 miles, I can see for miles and miles. What's going on? Is it third-party frames? It's not.
You can get a GFX 50S Mark II with a
couple of grand
28-55 equivalent lens for $4,500.
Couple of grand on eBay if you
compared to other things.
Yeah, so 50R is better than the 50S.
Yeah, is that the Mark II?
I don't know why they didn't do GFX 50 Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. I don't know, but
yeah, just looking now, the 50S Mark II came out September last year. It's interesting.
I hate all these websites where you get nonsense versus comparisons, and it just lists the various statistics. I don't like that at all.
Well, sometimes they're useful.
If they're good, Most of them are awful. Ken Rockwell once again kicking it out of the park with his comparison.
Well, Ken Rockwell's just an.
I love that guy. Honestly, I'm an enormous fan. He's a massive knob. He's a monumental knob. But once you've learned how to read him, he's one of the most to the point sources of information on all this shit. You just have to understand how to read him.
He's just a clickbait idiot. And he's a clickbait idiot. People take him at face value. That's the problem.
That's the thing. If you know how to read him, he is phenomenally useful. If you read what he says at face value, God's sake, get off the internet. But if you understand how to read him, I always go for his reviews, because if you turn on the Ken filter, you will get to the bottom of the
shit at times as well. He says film is the ultimate raw, you know.
Yeah, that's why you need the Ken filter, because it's obvious bollocks.
But it's still bollocks. It's best ignored.
But that's it. The Ken filter deals with that, right? But the guy will sit there and make uniform ISO comparisons of stuff and put up a page that says, look, here are the files. This camera is better. I would use it. End. That's it. No ad pre-roll, no 10-minute YouTube video, no stupid JavaScript, no adverts, just here are the images, this camera is the best one ever made. Done. And you filter that out because obviously it's not the best camera ever made, right? You just have to learn how to read him. I find his material incredibly useful. You just have to read Ken.
Yeah, but I
No
don't want
begging to subscribe.
do that. I just want to read somebody actually talk sense rather than bollocks.
Yeah, but there's so few people that have access to the amount of equipment he has access to that don't talk bollocks, right? He'll review everything. Tom Hogan, for example, he's brilliant. I love Tom Hogan's website.
But he's a Nikon.
Exactly.
Fanboy.
He won't touch anything that's not Nikon, basically. And so,
What's his name? Really good editorial photographer.
Doesn't shoot any studio at all, right?
Oh, I've forgotten his name now. This chap. He's an excellent photographer, but he did a book on shooting with flash and things like that. And the crap he comes out with about camera specs, and you think, well, he's obviously never used anything other than Nikon camera in his entire life, because he talks about how cameras do this, that, and the other. And you think, no, that's very specific.
There are other cameras that do other things.
Nikon. If he said, how to shoot small flash with a Nikon camera, that would be fine. But it just read as a puff piece. The book read as a sponsored thing. It's awful.
Yeah, Tom, a great to the point writer. Bit, I don't know, fancies himself as a Nostradamus, but then a lot of his predictions have been incredibly accurate, so I can't really chastise him too much for that. But yeah, if I see Rockwell with a review of something, I will beeline over there to see, pass it through the Ken filter and see what he says, because normally it's sound. I mean, he shoots Technicolor garbage, right? I don't like what he shoots, but he makes a lot of money shooting what he shoots, and I make nothing shooting what I shoot. So he must be if
he always begging
either
to support his private family and please click on it. But
that's presumably why he's got shitloads of money and I don't, right? He's got access to hundreds of thousands of pounds of equipment, right? And so he's either being sponsored by these vendors or he's buying it. And half of the reviews he prefaces with, I bought this with my own money, so I'm going to tell you what I really feel. He's very valuable. I'll miss an internet without Ken Rockwell. Imagine if everything was bloody Chelsea and Tony Northrup.
One place we do diverge, I think.
You obviously can't read Ken.
Or
lack the tolerance for Ken, I think, is probably more accurate.
Well, I know he's a bullshitter, and he just makes up crap, and he admits he makes up crap, and people quote it as
Oh,
serious.
that's not his fault, is it? That's like
But
people
no,
taking Monty Python
online.
seriously and blaming John Cleese. I mean,
Yeah, but that's meant to be non-serious. So
so's
he's
his
different.
website. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah, but people don't see it because it's not unless you look at his about thing, which people nobody ever reads.
This is like people thinking the Onion is a news website, right?
No, I disagree there because the Onion's, is a satirical thing, whereas Ken Rockwell doesn't present itself as satirical. It presents itself as dead serious and authoritative, and it's bollocks.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, I can cut through his shit, and I appreciate his work. I get you're coming from the he's going to mislead Muppets position.
He does. People online used to quote him all the time, and you think, oh, really?
Who has?
Guys.
Oh, hey up, Kev. Who had the article on the 7 types of photography, the 7 levels of photography? Was that Tom Hogan or was that Ken Rockwell?
Sounds like
because one of them had a great article on tripods. I think that was Tom Hogan, and I think Ken Rockwell had the 7 levels of photographer. And I always thought the 7 levels of photographer was a brilliant piece. Absolutely nailed it. Yeah, I think it was Ken because he was going on about measure betas, and yeah, that wouldn't be Tom Hogan. He wouldn't write that.
Oh, I just posted a thing from the studio scene at DPR of
oh right,
the GFX.
Open original. So that's the S2 and the R. What's the DC-S1? I'm not familiar with that.
The S1, I think it's one I think it is. I borrowed it for a while. It's Panasonic's kind of full frame high res camera.
Right.
But it looks low res there compared to the others.
Yeah.
But one of the things you can do, because it's 64 megabit, I'm sure. But one of the things you can do with it is shoot multi-frame and get 180 megapixel files, and they're amazing.
Oh, does it do the sensor shift?
Yeah, it's really impressive because my Olympus does that as well. That's impressive. This is basically a much bigger sensor, does it? So you get 180 megapixel images. I've done some cityscapes and things with it, and I could print them the size of a big wall, and they'd look fantastic. Really, really quite so. I'd buy the camera just to do that one thing. If I had the money, obviously. Its focusing let it down because it would miss focus on occasions.
Right.
I was photographing cyclists, and occasionally it would just miss it. And weirdly, I got some shots of Michelle, and she actually posed properly rather than
just standing there grumpy.
I take a test shot to check focus and exposure, and then she wanders off because she's bored. And she actually posed for some pictures, got some really nice shots of her, and the focus was just behind her. It was really annoying.
Someone here saying that they've shot with the GFX 100, and then they've shot with the Z7 with the Z series lenses, and he's previously on D850, and he prefers the 2470 f2.8s, so the new 2470 Z series lens on the Z7 to the GFX 100 overall.
You're talking Ken Rockwell?
No, Luminous Landscape guys. Bernard Languillier, the landscape photographer. Oh. Basically, because the increased resolution and detail is nice, but the Z7 II is equally great, but the lenses are better, and the autofocus is no competition.
Yeah, the Fuji 100 is much better autofocus.
Yeah, but not even close to the Z7.
Oh no,
Yeah.
the medium format cameras are shit in autofocus comparison to a
Yeah,
full-frame.
I guess it's because they don't have the resources to pile into the computation required for autofocus.
Yeah, I
Really?
also think it's the other issue is they're just slower to do it. But they often have just single points.
Yeah, yeah.
But the
But
other
at
thing
this
is,
point, it's all
they're not sports
computation.
cameras.
So
They're not sports cameras.
Nikon's AF is now predominantly using sensor data, right? So it's not a technical obstacle anymore, right?
What camera do you use?
I'm on a D810.
810.
Yeah. And there's not really been anything worth upgrading to for a long time. The Z series lenses are wonderful. The 85 1.8 Z series lens is it's just beautiful. Like it's
The
phenomenal.
new Canon lenses, which are the same sort of thing as the Z lenses, where it's designed for mirrorless. By all accounts, they're astonishing.
Yeah. The new Z series lenses, they're just bonkers. They're absolutely bonkers.
I just stuck your camera in that comparison tool, compared it next to the other Fujis.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'd expect. Those Fuji results are not as clean as others I've seen, though.
So the thing, I always look at these and think, well, when I stick a high ISO pictures in, I just put it on color noise maximum because it makes no difference to anything else. And it's amazing how much it looks.
Yeah.
When you look at these, it's awful. But it's just color noise eradicated. So you want to see it, color noise reduced, to then see.
Basically, yes. That's on the. If you look at the Ken Rockwell link, he's got images pasted with that exactly applied. Right, so he's got he's applied them with color noise because he's like, again, part of Ken Rockwell's filtering is always have color noise to 100. Don't care what anybody says. You don't lose anything, right?
No, I've tested it with lots of pictures to see if I can see any difference. I've never been seeing any difference.
Never can.
Color noise
No.
or not.
No.
So I always leave it on maximum.
You can't. You just leave it at 100 all the time. Like, well, not 100. I have it at 50 because there's no point.
The other thing I think with these, I understand why they do it, but viewing things at 100% all the time is kind of pointless because you can have a 100 megapixel camera at 100% compared to another camera, a 25 megapixel 100%, and the 100 megapixel camera may look inferior, but when you enlarge it 4 times less, it actually looks much better.
I think you have to have both. You do have to have both. Yeah.
But it's never taken into account because so often they talk about, at 100%, but you don't look at things at 100%. You look at things printed, if you're actually printing all on a big screen. You don't look at it that close. I'm looking at these Ken Rockwell things now, and the Nikon Z7 looks dreadful compared to the...
I know.
But
absolutely
it's Ken
awful.
Rockwell, so I'm taking that with a pinch of salt. Does he use JPEG? Because he always used to use JPEGs as well.
He still does because he makes money doing it. This is the thing. Well, he's again, Ken Rockwell filter.
Making money by people.
I just shoot JPEG because I don't see any point shooting RAW. Fine, crack on, right? I know enough to know that I need to shoot RAW, so I can just not acknowledge that point of view. You know what I mean? It's like you don't need to onboard that information.
Yeah, but if these are JPEG comparisons, they're irrelevant because JPEGs tend to over-process shit at high ISOs. So you should compare finished RAW products, done.
Well, yeah, because it could be down. It could be down to the noise reduction algorithm in the camera, for example.
Yeah, that's why it looks shit.
Right.
To me, it looks like an iPhone smeared picture. rather than the camera, because that's terrible on the
yeah, it's
Z7 at half the
notably
exposure.
bad, right?
But that looks like iPhone JPEGs, or
It's noticeably
photo
bad.
JPEGs,
Yeah.
as opposed to raw files then processed. Yeah, that looks like noise reduction, horrendous noise reduction. So what's the Canon?
This is the only aerial llama in the world.
Llama? Oh, llama. Oh,
Llama, yeah.
Why that llama?
So she had it custom made and then wrapped it in pride colours. And then Corona happened, so she had to keep the whole thing under wraps for 3 years, which apparently drove her absolutely bonkers because she was desperate to get it out and set it up in the studio. Yeah, and then finally got the chance to deploy it on stage at this event at the weekend.
Was she good?
Oh yeah, she's brilliant. She's totally bonkers. She's like the other girl. She is super capable and has almost gone through to the other, almost to the Picasso end of aerial performance now. Like, if you know what I mean. I can paint landscapes, so I'm going to paint weird shit now, right? That kind of thing. And is another metalhead. So all of her stuff comes out like to 9-inch nails or napalm death or whatever. Super high energy. Got some absolute crackers. I very seldom shoot to the buffer, but she was moving so fast that I overshot her routine quite seriously. Bow, bow, bow. Right, so if I tag all those and hit 3, will that work?
You know that Wales had the highest ever temperature yesterday?
What's that?
Wales had the highest ever temperature yesterday.
Oh, the highest recorded temperature in Welsh history, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hardly surprising.
37.1.
Global warming, bitches. Gonna kill us all. Oh, it's Alt. That's where I was going wrong. Right, so what's the best approach for this now? It's probably, I hope to hell that this has written the metadata out and then reload Lightroom and then go get another drink.
Oh, don't normally see your desktop.
Oh, yeah, I should have that. Boop. Although yesterday, nobody was paying attention, so I was on emails and things for about 3 hours. Just goes to show how popular the channel is. Alright, a load of headlines. UK set its hottest ever temperature, obviously. Wildfires everywhere, Europe on fire, people dying left and right, Australia's environment in shocking decline, everything we've been warning about for the last 40 years is coming true. Oh, but how could we have predicted this?
Oh yeah, but we're scaremongers, to forget. Fearmongers.
Yeah. Project Fear.
I think
BRB,
anybody who says
downloading
Project
some
Fear and all
VODs.
that sort of thing should be stuck somewhere on an island and then surrounded by fire, which increases smaller, and see if they complain about people saying fear, fear.
Yeah.
A math nerd stroke geographical joke. Do you know the poet Brian Bilston?
So what?
Do you know the poet Brian Bilston?
Brian Bilston. No, it doesn't ring any bells.
Very, very clever poetry. And he comments very much on everyday politics and things. He does poetry about Excel spreadsheets in Excel spreadsheet style and things.
Oh, right.
Incredibly ingenious in his poems. Really clever stuff. But this is one from yesterday which touches on what you're just talking about. You should be poet laureate.
Emergency services. A man died being pulled from the sea. Sagging conductors and overhead transformers causing faults in Yorkshire. Network Rail do not travel. Thameslink do not travel. Supreme Court have moved hearings online. British Museum closing at 3. Kew Gardens 37. Heathrow at 37 before noon. Cambridge will see 40 degrees. Blah, blah, blah. Thing is, when collectively everybody realizes we're all dead, do we see mass suicides and general societal collapse at that point? When people just give up? Because I dare say a lot of people are just going to be like, well, what's the point then? And fold.
You just look at what happens during war. With the same sort of thing. Because it basically be the same as a war.
Except you can plan an escape route from a war or hope you'll win. Tanzania, Tanzania, and Tanzania. Nice. Yeah.
Riots and looting.
Yeah, riots and looting non-stop. Like I think it's societal collapse and then just mass suicides as people can't, because you can't beat it. That's it. We've had the window to beat it closed 20 years ago, right? And now they're not going to do anything until it's far too late, right? But they're not going to do it. The world isn't going to do anything, right? By which point it will be completely unsurvivable, and it won't matter where anybody runs. There will be no food, power, water, and resources. So at that point, you could flee Ukraine, you could flee Somalia, you could flee Europe, etc., etc., etc. You cannot escape this, right? And I think psychologically that'll have a very different impact on people once their desperation is exhausted, if they haven't already starved to death. Yeah, it's just a matter of when. Is it 20 years? 10 years? 5? I don't see it being as many as 50.
Well, one positive thing is during times of crisis, humans can act remarkably quickly and
yes, but the actions we needed were 30-year plans.
No, I said, but in World War II, for example, if you look at the progress in technology in those few years, it's astonishing.
Yes.
And so what will have to, the problem is, with climate is,
Pawbox.
Is it going to be just ultimately way too late? With them to actually take action and realise there's a war going on. That's my concern. I'm hoping that things like this terrible weather at the moment is going to wake people up. But then Dominic Raab said, "Oh, people should sit and enjoy the sun."
Yeah, that's just it.
Fucking hell. That's part of the problem. We have so many
hang on, Jez. Before I do something absurd and destroy what I've just done in photo
How are we meant to send you things without a P.O. box?
I have a P.O. box, just haven't paid for it for about 12 years, and I'm kind of sketchy about checking in on it. I've got a load of star ratings and color ratings and tags in Photo Mechanic, right?
Yeah.
They've not reflected in Lightroom, right? If I sync metadata in Lightroom, there's an extraordinary level of anxiety.
Are they already in Lightroom?
Yes.
Right, so if you've updated them outside Lightroom, if you sync it, it should update the metadata.
So it won't write the "you don't have any metadata" bucko back to...
Do it on one image to test it.
That's a very reasonable suggestion.
If I'd say synced it in, I'd starred things in somewhere else. I'd have to synchronize a folder or whatever.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
I tend to do everything like them anyway, but.
Right. So if I just pick an image that I'm reasonably confident has got a tag on it, like one of these of this guy. I know I tagged one of these. Hey. Lightroom has stopped responding.
You're on emails and things, by the way.
Yeah. I'm not worried about that just yet because I'm not going to do anything important. And I might be bouncing back into the file manager. So if I now metadata, read metadata from files, we'll overwrite the metadata in Lightroom.
Because you might get an exclamation mark saying that.
Okay, cool. Read metadata works. The tag, did it change flags for tags? Let's do it. Metadata, read metadata from files. Reading XMP metadata. This is Lightroom. This is going to take long enough for me to go for a piss and get a cup of tea. So, I'll be right back.
could have just examined the metadata outside of LR.
But that's too easy.
Why are all these programs so opaque about this stuff? LR and PS have no business dumping their non-standard metadata into files either. Well, they did invent XMP lol.
differential in the bush.
Ugh. Right. Oh, yeah, it's Satan's armpit out there. Like hairdryer wind.
Did it work?
Hmm?
Den? Did
Hello?
it work?
Did what work?
The syncing.
I did read metadata from file.
I've just been out in the garden for a few minutes.
That's horrific.
And I'm hotter than I was going for a bike ride last night.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I didn't even sweat last night.
I just walked around the corner shop to get some milk, and the corner shop was air conditioned, and the office is air conditioned, and even then, like, I think I'm just going to have to go and dry hump it for a second because I'm actually uncomfortably hot, and I was outside for maybe 2 minutes. I'm not built for this shit.
I'm going to go for a bike ride in a short bit.
Yeah. Won't be right back.
Right. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Frosted nuts. That's better.
Oh, can you
Ooh,
hear me, by the way?
shit! Who's that? Fucking hell, Jez, you came in loud
Jez.
then. Bloody hell.
I'm on my different mic.
No shit.
I'm on
All
my
right,
phone.
let me just dial that down by about 90%. Whew. All right. You're back.
Luckily, I didn't do this before you muted it. I'm doing ice.
Okay, now I just need to flag the candids. Oh god, I hate Lightroom. Son of a fuck. Just
What's
the
the problem?
worst. Just Lightroom. It's just nasty user interface.
Really like
Fucking hate it.
Lightroom because it makes them
Sliding
I much
bollocks.
prefer to capture one.
Fucking garbage user interface. If you can't animate the user interface in a separate thread so that the user face is permanently rendered and responsive, you should not animate your interface. Good God. right? Why is there a requirement for things to slide and move in a user interface? Oh, there isn't! Fucking garbage. Like, I don't have many functional objectives, disagreements with Lightroom. The way it operates and the features it provides, good stuff. Hey, Crafty. Oh, Jesus, Crafty. Crafty.
Hello.
Christ.
What? Safety first. I have to put my seatbelt on.
Yeah, so the features that Lightroom provides, no quarrel, right? It's the way it does it that I gripe with.
I find it one of the nicest and easiest
So
UIs
much
to use.
mystery meat in this user interface.
I love that term.
Oh, God. Like down in the bottom right corner, filter, custom filter. The fact you've put a colon next to it makes me think that's just a label. And if I drop custom filter, I see some nonsense bollocks I didn't design. The only way to get to the filters is to actually, oh, can't click on that, can't click on that. No, that's black space, but that throws up a click menu. I don't know why. The only way to get the filters is to click the label. Why? Because elsewhere in the program, a label with a colon isn't a clickable entity. Ah, so much wrong with the user interface.
What show are you talking about here?
No, just
Also, why are you putting colons in UI labels?
inconsistent bollocks in the Lightroom UI is what I'm on about. I think I do get UI design is really hard. To do UI well is honestly probably one of the hardest things in computing.
I think Lightroom nailed the UI. It changed how we did things, and for the better. Photoshop as well. If you look at the very first version of Photoshop, they got it right straight away.
Yeah, Photoshop nailed the UI 30 years ago and has been making it worse ever since.
Well, the thing is, it just, things get more complex with time. So it's, you shove in more and more into the same size box. I'm having my soup in the garden, which is quite pleasant.
Okay. Crafty, are you using the phone to move the steering wheel? Because it does sound that way.
Oh.
I don't know what's going on with your thing today. We had the seatbelt beeper and then...
I know. Sometimes it works really well.
Today is not that day.
How about now? So now I'm holding the phone next to the steering wheel.
Right.
Well, that's not a wise thing to do.
That's not safe, Crafty. I don't feel like I should be the one that has
to
point this out, but
illegal.
I'm not looking at the phone. I'm just clutching the phone against the steering wheel.
Still not convinced it's totally safe.
I mean, if you were to do it on like an absolute grading system, you shouldn't hold anything with your steering wheel, I suppose.
Other than the steering wheel, no. I mean, it's a fairly standard thing.
Oh man, this reminds me of how much I am upset that my dashboard display thing doesn't work in this car.
Oh, you know what's just upset me? I've been picking images in Lightroom by pressing the left bracket, not the P. So I haven't actually picked I haven't actually picked any images.
Why have you been doing that? Even I remember that.
No, because I put my hand on the keyboard and thought I was on the P key.
Bollocks.
But I wasn't.
Bollocks.
Oh, you spilled your soup.
Yeah, it looks like somebody's been sick over the seat next to me.
The good thing is when he has to swerve and yank his steering wheel, the phone goes out the side window.
Yeah, when you swerve to yank the steering wheel, the phone goes out the window.
Are you talking about the steering wheel going out the window?
Like some kind of comedy skit? Yeah. I think he's on about the phone slipping out the window.
You know what it is? Here. I'm going to sacrifice my comfort for your comfort.
Right.
It was the air conditioner again. I think it was the air conditioner.
I wish P for pick unpicked an image that was picked. I'd like to be able to set that as a toggle.
Yeah, things should toggle.
Because I don't like having to press P for pick and U for unpick.
Oh, you mean because you have to hit U to unpick it, right?
Yeah, and I just think that P
the toggle would be better.
Toggle, yeah, because you get a toggle in Photo Mechanic and Capture One.
Also, if you do star ratings and colors, they toggle.
Do they now?
You press.
No, they don't toggle.
Well, sorry. Colors toggle.
Wait, do you ever call in Capture One, Jen?
Yeah, the colors toggle. Yeah, I've just tested it. Colors do toggle. Ratings don't.
Yeah, that makes sense to not toggle ratings, but
yeah, no, I'd agree with the star rating.
Annoyingly, you can't do the purple. They
You
just
have
have
to
a
bind
shift
it separately, don't you?
Yeah, it's.
Jen, what are you using?
You can.
What do you do in Capture One?
Well, what?
What do you do in Capture One? Like, I just use green and red in Capture One if I'm culling straight in there.
Oh, if I'm culling Capture One, I'll usually use the ratings.
Oh.
And just
you'll just do
first
one
pass,
star
1 star.
for...
Yeah, 1 star everything on a first pass, and then keep, and if I do spot any real keepers, I'll 5-star them or whatever. But yeah.
Oh, 1 star is 1 star makes it a candidate in the first place for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way I do it is I go through it. Anything I like is a 1. Anything that should be binned, which is rare, is an X.
I don't
and then
waste...
once I've
Wait, what's an X in Capture One? Or are you talking about Lightroom?
You just delete it in Capture One.
It's a reject.
Yeah. Because I don't waste any time.
Usually, all the ones are then to be worked on. And when they've been done, they get a 2. And then if they've been outputted and whatever, they get a 3. And if they go on the website, they get a 4.
Yeah, so you have sort of like a
slide. And then I
use
use
colors sort of increment it as you go.
Yeah, I've tried loads of different things, and that really works nicely because you know where you are.
Yeah.
And also, I use colors then to separate things for different reasons. If I all sorts of different jobs, just to flag a few things separately. And because what I do is when I work on some stuff, I have it set so anything flagged, anything with a color gets hidden. So once I've done something, it gets made red, then disappears from the grid. So I'm only left with the ones I need to work on. So it just declutters. So I use it for that sort of thing.
Yeah, in Capture One, you select the things you're going to work on, and it moves them into the selects folder.
Well, I can't. I don't think.
Oh, that's if you're using sessions.
And I don't know how catalog works with selects. I've never tried it. I don't know. I don't trust catalog mode.
There just isn't in catalog mode.
Right.
Yeah, because I used to have separate folders and things for things I was working on or different types of things, and now I just leave everything in one folder and it just gets filtered. Everything is neat and tidy that way.
I do my snapshots catalog in Capture One nowadays, and then if it's anything distinctive as like a discrete event of some sort, then I'll do a session for it.
Right.
But my catalog is just an annual snapshot dump, basically.
I have everything organized by day, date, description.
And I don't even organize my snapshot catalog. I don't even call it. I just import off the card and never look at it again.
Yeah.
Which is probably like 80% of the shit on my NAS is probably just out of focus or completely black frames.
Yeah. I don't
For those sort
shoot
of things, I
enough.
reject and delete them if they're obvious,
I don't
serious
shoot enough
mistakes.
other shit, like, because everything I shoot now is job based. There's no point. Yeah, and because everything in the file system is named, if I need to find someone's files, I just search for name in Dopus, and then I've just got their files because all the files are named with their names. And obviously it's only works
Yeah,
because what I'm shooting is just a whole bunch of named people. Like, it wouldn't work otherwise, obviously.
Use full names.
Yeah, first name, surname.
Yeah.
Have to, because there might be 4 Lauras on a shoot.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Like in my class at school, there were 16 boys, and a quarter of them were called Mark.
Did you go to
Is
school in
first name
Wales?
surname more convention in Europe than? Because we usually we do surname last name or surname first name if it's some sort of organizational naming.
No, just first name surname is fine. We're smart enough to navigate that.
Yeah, surname. In my phone contacts, I have it first name because that's how I remember people, by the first names. So
yeah.
Obviously, in a phone book, it's different because it works differently.
I can barely remember people's first name after I meet them the first time. There was a guy I worked with for 2 years straight before the pandemic, and ran into him at my daughter's daycare the other day because his kid is in her room. Could not remember this guy's name, and we were chatting for
people. I forgot their names.
we were chatting for like 10 minutes, and I was like, I can't remember this dude's name. Fortunately, he gave me a clue as to how I could go about finding him again on LinkedIn. And then
Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark Weirdo, Mark from work, Mark 5.
Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark Weirdo, Mark from work, Mark 5, Mark the plumber. Or in Jez's case, if he went to school in Wales, Mark Jones, Mark Jones, Mark Jones, Mark Hughes, Mark Jones, Mark Hughes, Mark Hughes, and Mark Jenkins.
Oh, you forgot Mark Phillips. Mark Phillips.
Mark Phillips. Mark Phillips.
Yeah, Phillips, Hughes, Jenkins, and Jones are very Welsh surnames. No, they all are different non-Welsh names. Think about it. But since then, I've known Mark. God, it's such a common name. And then a couple of times, half people I knew were called Chris.
Right, this has been trying to do this metadata between photomechanic tags and Lightroom flags has been an absolute clusterfuck. Do not recommend.
Flags and tags?
Yeah, so flags did not tags in photomechanic did not translate into tags in photomechanic did not translate into flags in Lightroom. So I had to go back to photomechanic and 3-star everything.
Different proprietary naming in the XMP.
Right, and then bring them into...
The sort of thing that should be versatile.
Yeah, and yeah, there's no excuse.
Particularly with photomechanic, where you do it in there to go into Lightroom or Capture One or whatever.
Yeah, so the tag in photomechanic is an internal thing only, by the looks of it. It's internal to photomechanic. It doesn't seem to translate.
A bit stupid,
internally.
Considering photomechanic's function.
So I had to go back, filter by tagged in photomechanic, apply 3 stars, then come back into Lightroom and filter on 3 stars. But I'd already gone through and picked some images in Lightroom that now only had flags and not stars. So I had to filter the flagged ones and then throw those in with 3 stars. We'll get there in the end, but backing out.
This is why I use the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 process system.
I thought
because it just
tagging
works
them
everywhere.
I thought tagging them in Photo Mechanic might have flagged them as a pick in Lightroom, but that is not the case.
Yeah. I suppose you haven't come across this before.
I have. I must have done, but it would have been so long ago that I've forgotten.
Are you using PM because you had so many shots?
Lightroom's too slow to zoom in and check focus.
Yeah, but are you using PM because there's so many pictures?
Yeah, because if I've got to pick 1 out of 4, I need to pick the sharp one, the sharpest one. Sorry, and Lightroom is way too slow to generate. You know, when you zoom in in Lightroom, it's like, all right, let me do some rendering, please.
Bridge for that.
Can't hear you, Jez. Your reception is wankered.
Oh, have you tried using Bridge for doing
I
that?
have not tried Bridge for doing that. As a matter of fact, I went straight for Photo Mechanic because that was my reflex.
Well,
let's have a quick look in Bridge.
Out of curiosity,
I have never heard of people using Bridge.
just try Bridge. Bridge was a great program. There's a lot of potential. Then Lightroom came out and Adobe abandoned it, basically. Occasionally they'd change it and remove functionality.
Oh, no chance.
Really
no chance at all. Whew. That's a crash waiting to happen. No, that's a car crash. That is no. That's not going to work. It's lag. It's crashed. There it goes.
How is the loop useful LOL?
What's the problem?
It crashed. It was very slow, and then it crashed.
No, I've used Bridge for doing things like that, and it's quick. Yeah.
I think it might have to generate.
Maybe it was shocked at being used.
It might have to. It might have to generate high quality previews first before you try and use it. But Photo Mechanic doesn't, so Photo Mechanic is still the bookie's favourite for that one.
Sorry, not that one. Bridge can also do. You can use embedded thumbnails, or you can generate thumbnails.
Yeah, so if you check focus though. So if it grinds to a halt when you zoom in, it's no use.
Yeah, so
if that makes sense.
Photo Mechanic will only use the thumbnails as well. That's why
when
it's
you
quicker.
Zoom in though,
it's not actually
it pulls the RAW out, doesn't it, when you zoom in? Because I know my embedded JPEGs are not the resolution that Photo Mechanic is showing me.
Well, if Photo Mechanic can instantly render a RAW file, that's something they didn't used to do.
Let's have a quick peek. I mean, either way, it's just
so
lightning
in
fast
the
compared to
top right corner. The U is a bit rubbish. There's kind of a checkered box, I think. You can do embedded thumbnails, so you can, cull quickly that way. That works the same way as Photo Mechanic.
It's still like swimming through shit compared to Photo Mechanic though, so there's no point using it. Like Photo Mechanic is an order of magnitude more responsive in terms of its UI.
Yeah.
So for
culling, I think the reason why Photo Mechanic's faster is because basically it does less. It just looks at the
absolutely. It literally it's super single purpose, slimmed down to nothing.
Yeah,
like drag race.
So when people compare
tool.
So when people compare them, it's foolish because they're different tools.
Oh yeah, but like, if you're saying use Bridge in place of Photo Mechanic, Bridge is not fast enough. Like if you wanted to do something else,
I'll have a look at it. Because Bridge used to be quite quick for that sort of thing.
Like I say, maybe it has to generate settings or something. Maybe it has to generate previews like Lightroom does, but it's
an option.
I double clicked it and it said generating high res preview, and then it crashed. So
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. there's an option to do it like work like Photomechanic, where it just looks at the JPEGs.
Right.
So rather than building the things,
Trying
it
to do a
just
full
looks at
res
the
thing.
Yeah.
Let's try it again.
Because if you think about it, if you stick 1,000 images into any program, raw images, and expect them to just do them quickly, nothing's going to do it.
Where's this
But if you use
mystical
it,
tick
if you
box
build
that unshits it?
top right, I think it's a checkered box.
Oh, here we are.
Just
Option,
hover.
browse quickly
hover.
by preferring embedded images. There we go.
Yeah, try that.
Embedded, standard recommended, on-demand generates only when needed. Let's tick that as well, even though I want embedded set. Okay.
So basically, you're reducing the overhead the program is running on. So it should, because I used to use that. I used to use Photomechanic years ago before Bridge became like it is. And then once I got into that workflow,
keeps lagging out.
Oh,
it's faster, but it's still locking up on the regular. And the loop
Why is it doing that then?
Tawdry. Fucked if I know,
Have you cleaned
Jez.
out the cache?
I've never used
Clean
it
out the
before.
cache.
There's going to be nothing in it.
Yeah.
It's literally the second time I've loaded Bridge. The first time it crashed. Media cache.
But Bridge can work very, very quickly.
Automatically delete cache files. There we go. Older than 90 days. Cache.
Also increase the cache size, maybe.
Compact cache on exit. Yes. Automatically import cache from folders if possible. Yeah. Purge cache older than 30 days when idle. Yeah. Compact now. Purge. Yes. Whatever.
Oh, the synchronize color settings before I forget. If you synchronize in Bridge, that means if you have a custom setting, like I use Adobe, Pro Photo Workspace, that's not one of the options you can do in Bridge. They're kind of generic wide settings.
How the hell do I zoom this? What's the key for viewing this in
Spacebar.
100%?
Spacebar.
No, to just not to, because that repaints the UI. Can I just zoom the center panel to 100%?
No, what you can do. Well, right. If you do tab, that gets rid of the two. Well, it depends how you lay it out.
I need to zoom
images.
I need to zoom the preview window to 100% zoom level. I don't need to make it bigger.
Hang on a second. Right, if you do tab, that gets rid of the extra panels leaving the thing.
Yeah.
And spacebar makes it full frame.
Yeah.
I think spacebar again makes it 100%.
None of those things I need. I just want to zoom the preview to 100% zoom to check focus.
Just click it. I think. You just try clicking it.
No, that pops up a little laggy. That pops up a little laggy loop window.
Oh yeah, there's a loop thing that was
that
invented.
Does have some use, but you can't resize it, and you can't change the zoom level of it.
Well, when I get back in the house, I'll look at it.
Oh yeah, because you're in the garden at the moment, so understandably.
Yeah.
No, I'm not seeing any benefit.
I don't use Bridge very often, so I kind of lost the muscle.
No. Speed.
Also,
speed isn't there, and there's it comes down to, I think, Photomechanic doing only one thing, and as a consequence, it does it very, very, very quickly. And I don't think it's necessary to, like Bridge does a lot in terms of metadata and file handling.
Yeah.
And I just don't.
The way I look at it, and why I don't use Photomechanic anymore, is because to use Photomechanic and then go into Lightroom, I might as well just start in Lightroom, and the time taken in Photomechanic is just time taken away from Light.
Yeah, you see, Lightroom works for you. Lightroom's too slow for me, so
yeah.
I'm
so the speed overall of everything with Lightroom, Lightroom's definitely got problems in some ways, but the overall speed by using that one thing for everything saves me huge amounts of time.
Really?
Yep.
You see, I don't see how that.
Because I'm not going back and forth. I use one program I'm not having to swap into different programs and do different things. Everything gets done in one program. There's no saving.
No, I understand what you're saying. I just don't think that the porridge-like behavior of Lightroom, I don't think I'm going to end up faster using just Lightroom, because if it takes me 1 second per image longer because of Lightroom's performance issues, that's 2,000 seconds, and I'm not going to lose 2,000 seconds closing Photo Mechanic and opening Lightroom.
Yeah, but you're forgetting the time used in Lightroom, in Photo Mechanic, and then in Lightroom.
The job that I'm doing in Photo Mechanic is the job I'd have to do in Lightroom anyway, so that job is already done by the time I get to Lightroom.
Well, if you're using them that way, it's different. But I use Lightroom for everything, so I found using Photo Mechanic and then Lightroom slower.
Do you shoot a lot of high volume event stuff? Because I know you've done some high volume event, but
I have done, yeah. So obviously each job is different.
Yeah.
For different things.
Oh, but Dick Bolts! It's done that fucking thing again when it's overridden. Bollocks! You can't copy the. You can't just copy the constrain crop setting. You have to take all of the lens transform settings in one go. And that is super annoying. What button is black and white mode, Jez? Is that V? Yeah, it's V.
I never use it.
Bang.
But I think it is.
So now I've got to go in here. And
so are you in Bridge now, or are you giving
I've sacked off Bridge now. There's no benefit to it. Like it doesn't do anything more than Photo Mechanic. So it doesn't make any sense to use that ahead of Photo Mechanic, if that makes sense. If it did something extra, like if it added something to the process, then it would be worth trading off the idiosyncrasy that I need.
It does do extra things, but yeah, as I said, but if you don't need them.
Yeah. Like I said the other day, if you're working on book stuff, right? Like trying to put together a multimedia project, dealing with like
that's what I said before. Like Bridge. The reason it's called Bridge is because it's the bridge between Photoshop, InDesign,
and it works really well.
As that, in that sense, it's brilliant. Yeah,
it works very well for asset management.
So, that's why I used to use it, because that was the only thing you could use. But now my focus is now more photography.
Yeah.
I don't use InDesign and things anymore, really. So I don't need
likewise. I don't. I've not been required to do something like that for a long time.
I used InDesign the other day to make a poster that all I was ever going to do with the poster was export it to a JPEG and put it into a Slack channel to make it feel like there was an advertisement for something.
Well, you might as well just do that in Photoshop. Because unless you do multi-page designs, use Photoshop. In Quark, which was the de facto
edge layouting design just for the hell of it.
Quark was the de facto page design for years, and I often wonder how they managed to do this amazing stuff. And I realised they didn't do it in Quark; they just did it in Photoshop and just stuck the whole page.
Did it in Photoshop and they just stuck it down as a page.
Yeah. So one of the few times I've ever done a course on any photography program was Quark, and that's when I decided I did not want to be a magazine designer. Because if I had to use Quark, I wouldn't. It had no undo.
You remember?
It had one undo.
The only time I've ever had to do desktop publishing revealed to me that I did not want to be a desktop publisher.
Yeah, God. Yeah, because I used CorelDRAW and things, and CorelDRAW is a really good program.
That was my first.
But because it was a PC program, it got sneered at.
I quite liked Corel. I thought Corel Photo Paint, Corel Photo Paint's, what would you call it? Methodology was the first one I used, where everything that you had was an object. Right? Was its own individual object. I really struggled with Photoshop layers to begin with. I really struggled with Photoshop. I couldn't get my head around it to begin with. because I was like, why is this like covering the whole canvas? It's just I just want this thing to be on its own. Like in Coral Photo Paint, the things were just on their own, right? And that I struggled with that for ages.
I remember when Photo Paint and Photoshop were still going head to head, or like Corel and Adobe were still kind of going head to head way back at the, what was it, early 2000s probably?
Well, I used in the 90s.
Yeah,
Corel Draw and
or
Photoshop.
even in the 90s, yeah.
And Corel Draw was way better than Illustrator.
Oh,
Illustrator was a bag of shite.
And then,
fucking hate Illustrator.
Yeah, Illustrator. They bought most of Illustrator as well.
Adobe?
Yeah. I think
what
that's
did they
why.
buy it from?
I don't know. I seem to remember they bought in something, and it wasn't.
Was it
great.
from the Macromedia stuff that they bought?
No, that was different. That was freehand. Macromedia did freehand, and a lot of designers loved freehand. And
so Adobe bought it and destroyed it.
Like Dreamweaver and
they
stuff.
just ignored it.
Yeah, they just bought it and ignored it,
and
and just killed it.
Dreamweaver is still alive.
Oh, God's sake!
Dreamweaver is a web authoring program.
What key combination?
But Flash is gone because, Apple killed Flash.
Flash is long gone now.
Which is a shame because Flash was very good in so many ways. It basically made the internet universal.
Now. It's like doing Game Boy emulators and stuff. You do like Flash emulators now because people wanted to bring back all the Newgrounds shit.
Yeah, if you look at Flash stuff from the early 2000s, it's better than websites you see now because you could do so much clever stuff.
I mean, Flash. It was way ahead of its time. Interactivity.
Well, it was universal. It was universal. That was the key thing. No matter what browser you looked it looked the same. And when you used to do web design, it was a nightmare because every browser rendered things differently. Flash sidestepped all that.
And no matter what browser you looked at it in, all the malware worked on all of them.
No, I thought that wasn't a problem. Apple hated Flash because they couldn't control it.
There was also
they made it
also a massive security vector because it had application level runtime access.
Yeah, and that was
through
before
the browser.
All the browsers had the lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a huge open security hole, and so there was a massive call from industry to just get rid of it because they're like, look, we cannot run our
Flash was abused to
commercial networks with Flash anywhere near the commercial network because it is basically just a massive hole. And there was a huge commercial pressure to get rid.
No. The reason it disappeared was Jobs hated it because he had he couldn't gate it.
Yeah,
so he made it
you could do
unusable on his thing. So that
you could do outside the browser stuff through Flash, and he wanted the browser to be like the gateway to everything you could do, right?
Yeah, he wanted to control the gateway, and it sidestepped Apple's ecosystem, and that's why I hated it. So he made a point of destroying it, and that killed it. Everything else was irrelevant.
Can't say I miss it,
once Apple,
frankly. From a developer's perspective, I don't miss it at all. From a user end producer, yeah. Well, you've got to the point now where you can
so far now.
You can run full game engines in WebGL, so there's no need for it now.
You can do everything that you could do in Flash and much more nowadays in the browser, and the browser differences have homogenized to the point now where it's like
to a good extent, but it's still worryingly disparate.
Yeah,
the Flash was universal, and it allowed much more creative stuff than you see even now. Yeah, the golden age of interesting web design was Flash based. Now you look at websites; they're all functional, they work, but there's no interesting designs or anything. It's all dull because it had creative people designing it.
That's the big thing, right? If you want to do something sexy cool now with a WebGL, you have to be a top-end developer to pull it off. Whereas through Flash, you just had to be you needed an awesome artist, and you could pull it off.
Yeah.
Right. And there's more artists than there are top-shelf coders. Because if you want to do something really cool with WebGL, Jesus Christ, you've got to be John Carmack, right? And that skill set.
Or you got to go full into the Unity engine shit.
Yeah, well, they just sold out to a massive malware vendor.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
They just absolutely sold Unity out. So Unity's dead in the water. That's on a ticking clock now.
But yeah, like that's back when people had that curiosity still. Now it's all commoditized and like the whole web world just kind of goes with the flow of whatever's in vogue for design at the moment, which is, remember when it was skeuomorphic stuff for a while?
Yeah.
I hated that era.
I've made it
However
I've made it
long
look like
that
a
lasted.
bookshelf because you're buying books. Lol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Apple's GarageBand was horrendous from a skeuomorph point of view. It was just it had wooden bits in it. Jesus Christ.
What was
It
GarageBand?
was awful. Oh, it's Apple's
That was
music
their consumer
software.
version of
Logic.
Yeah, that's their
Okay,
consumer
like
Logic,
Audition.
basically.
No, it's a music program.
I would
What?
call Audition more of like a wave edit. Audition is more like a wave file editor.
Yeah, it's
Right.
editor.
So more like Pro
GarageBand
Tools.
is how you make music.
It's like
No,
Pro
Pro Tools is not quite. No, it's to make music. You literally make music with it. Pro Tools is for dealing with music you've made.
I
Slightly
mean,
different.
you may as well say you make photographs with it to somebody that knows nothing about imaging.
Yeah, but
I don't know what make
It
music
takes,
with
like,
it means.
you can make your drum sounds, anything music related. It can create it and stuff. You know,
Right.
so you can have drum
Think-
patterns,
think vector-
samples, wave files, everything that you could add together.
Think vector versus
in layers.
raster.
What's that, Crafty?
Like Illustrator versus Photoshop. Like Pro Tools and Audition
both.
and Audacity. Those are for like editing, like raster version of audio, which is like raw wave files. So you're mastering things, not like adding the notes for them.
It's
Okay,
using
so-
MIDI things in a
so
music
in
program, so
GarageBand-
program MIDI stuff.
In GarageBand, you would actually make the WAV file that you would then take into Audition.
No, not quite. In GarageBand and other programs like it, you can have a MIDI control files, so you can play a keyboard using MIDI
Right.
triggering, which is basically like
Yes.
it's parameter-based editing.
Right.
But also you can sing
LOL.
into it, record that, layer it on top, so you can mix and match. So it's like Photoshop in the
so
fact that
it's
loads of
kind of
layers, some
like-
of which are smart objects.
Right. So it did what Audition does itself internally, as well as being
Overcomplicating
able
it.
to generate stuff.
Yes, but if you want to specifically edit WAV files, you use a WAV editor, which is, as Crafty said, it's like a raster version.
Okay. All right. That makes a bit more
Whereas
sense.
it's rather than being like Lightroom, where you have Lightroom is like MIDI, effectively. It's just a sequence of controls that you trigger it to look a certain way, and MIDI controls things to sound a certain way.
Yeah, that was
I
my
know
comparison.
what
to,
MIDI
depending on
like,
what you-
Illustrator
It's just
there.
when you said you use it to make music. I mean, you use Do you use Premiere to make video? It's like
No, you
you
don't.
Right, you
No,
use Premiere to
Premiere is
assemble
edited.
video. Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
but if you use After Effects, you can make videos in After Effects or Flash
Yeah.
and things because you're actually creating from
Yeah,
nothing. So you can
Gotcha.
create from nothing.
So GarageBand was
Yeah,
allowing
or you're
you
using-
to originate stuff.
Yeah, so
From a
basically you
variety
can
of
just,
different
if you've got
sources.
a MIDI keyboard, you just
Yeah.
doodle on your MIDI keyboard and you've
Yeah.
written a tune. You
Gotcha.
can put that
yeah.
in there and you can take it apart and
Yeah.
Yeah,
And was that's
and
Mac?
it's all
That's a Mac
sample-based
only thing,
for the
is it?
most part.
yes,
For
it's
GarageBand
Apple's
yeah.
it's Apple's own thing. It's their version of
What's the PC
iMovie.
analog to that?
I don't think there is one.
I don't
As
think
such-
Microsoft ever did one
No,
because
not
the
necessarily
other
Microsoft,
big.
but someone would have made something like that. No.
Oh,
Um,
it's the
You had
light
Logic,
version
but
Oh,
Apple
that's
bought
it's
Logic.
literally
That's
just
what PC
called
supports.
Logic. That's not the vendor. It's just called Logic.
No,
Logic is
was
the heavy duty version.
Yeah, but that
and
was it used to be a
GarageBand is
PC
the-
program. It was a PC
Oh, yeah.
and Apple program.
not
Apple bought
anymore.
it up and dropped PC support, which pissed a lot of people off
Fruit High Loops.
Hardly surprising.
because it was
Fruity Loops,
50%
I've heard of that.
split. Yeah, Fruity
Right.
Loops is a loop-based program where you assemble. It's like for dance music. You have loops, and literally, it's lots of loop-based
Yeah.
thing. either Acid
God, that
on
sounds like a nightmare.
PC, which is a loop-based program. I used to use it. It's actually not dissimilar from GarageBand in some ways, but I used to use it for doing complex DJ mixes because I would layer them in different tracks and things.
And then you have Ableton is one of the big ones in the Windows world or the Mac world.
Yeah, Ableton's a production tool. It makes music. You can also DJ with it in a slightly odd way.
Right.
It's a very, very clever program.
Yeah, there's
hang on.
crossover between
what the heck now is a production tool? How does that differ?
Producer. It's basically is what the producer uses to mix music.
What does that mean?
If you've got a band playing in the studio, they're all playing things into a deck, okay, and then you have a big mixing deck that's 24 channels wide or whatever. I'm thinking analog now, and he mixes things, he changes the sound.
Yeah.
That's your layers in Photoshop.
Right.
Yeah, the channels are layers. So you basically you can produce the track by messing up the layers. In effect, you can switch layers in and out, emphasize things. Yeah, assemble. So. DJs who are music makers
program,
often use
that turns up in a separate program to the other one that you were talking about.
There's a lot more overlap across all these.
Overlap.
Sorry, that was a garble.
What we're trying to compare to like Photoshop. There's a lot more overlap to these programs than our comparisons that we're making to like Photoshop versus Illustrator. But like also think in Photoshop, like how you have blend modes on your layers. That would be like your DSP effects on your channels in the
I want to add reverb or I want to
those
echo this or add bass here
filters.
Right.
Well, they're all ultimately classified as digital audio workstations. Like if you hear DAW, like digital audio workstation.
It seems to me the audio uninitiate or largely uninitiate that there is a huge amount of overlap in a lot of these audio tools, whereas there is some overlap in Premiere and After Effects in the sense that you would make your lower thirds in After Effects, but you can make a lower third in Premiere, but you can't assemble video in After Effects. But you can't do so.
You can, but it's a pain.
Right,
to do like a full length thing.
But like the divisions between Premiere, your video recorder, and After Effects are a bit cleaner than they are between these bits of audio software.
No, I wouldn't say that. They vary just as much because there's so many different programs and they vary within themselves and overlap. So it's no different really. It's just slightly more specific tools for certain jobs.
Like depending on what kind of music that you're making, some of the DAWs might be more suited than others. Like Ableton Live, like people use that a lot for more like electronic type music because it's better with all of the people like the interface. They're better for making like kind of that loop based, sample based stuff.
It's not the interface that makes it thing. It's the assembly engine. The interface is unique and it's really, really cleverly thought out. It's a very, very impressive interface.
Yeah, Ableton is cool.
It's a genius program.
And like Pro Tools is what you'll find a lot of people who are scoring movies will be using Pro Tools, and then what's that other big
That's
one?
More like a mixing thing, as in internal mixer. So it's later on in the production process where you could doodle on Fruity Loops or GarageBand or little things. You could just make up tunes, and then as you progress, you then take it into a bigger DAW, for lack of a better word, and then working it there, and then end up in Pro Tools to master it and things. So it's kind of very analogous to the digital audio workstation. What Crafty just mentioned. Most of them, that's what they are. They work on audio digitally, but in different ways and different interfaces.
Like at a base level, they all have channels, kind of standard thing. They all have channels, and you can pretty much all of them. You can bring in live analog channels to create a recording and stuff. But the ones that have more of the tooling in them for creating music off of sample libraries and stuff are what you're going to be using to make music typically. That's what it's all like. A lot of it's all just sample based off these big ass sample libraries that may or may not have some dynamics built into them on top of the rawly recorded samples too. Like piano, for example.
But
Like if you're going to play piano,
is this digital audio workstation thing? Is that a software interface like a DaVinci control surface, or is it actually doing audio things?
It's like
that's just
saying
a classification.
One at a time.
Video editing program. Video editing program is a video editing program, and a DAW is a musical equivalent of that.
Right. So it's not interfacing with a piece of software. It is.
No, it is software.
Doing
software.
Wait. So is it a physical device or a piece of software?
No, it's software. Digital audio.
Just software. It's the category.
Yeah. Right. Because when you said it's a digital audio workstation, I thought it was like a physical.
A DAW mainly does recording and mixing.
Now,
it's a virtual digital mixing
What's interesting with DAWs that hasn't arrived so much in the image editing landscape is that there are just a handful of standardized plugin interfaces for them essentially for digital signal processing plugins, like your blend modes on your layers in Photoshop. And there's like the VSTs, VST3s, there's a couple other ones, but they've all kind of settled into these several plugin formats. And so if you invest a lot of money into plugins, which is something that you end up doing in this space,
you can carry
the plugins can actually, you can carry them around to different DAWs.
That's good.
Like you don't have that in the image.
But this
imaging world,
thing that you're talking about, though, does it have a control surface like DaVinci, or can you use a control surface like DaVinci?
Oh yeah, you can use one.
The X-Touch. That's what an X-Touch does. It's a MIDI controller.
Okay.
So all the various thousands of MIDI devices control just any DAW.
That's the other standard.
MIDI is universal.
Yeah.
Okay, so universal, but then
it can be hardware only or hardware and software.
Right.
So you can use MIDI with just hardware tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the big manufacturers, they have their own, that are a little bit more proprietary to their individual DAW software, but they're, optimized for like Pro Tools. When you see a mixing studio with like a big ass deck, and someone using Pro Tools, it's probably like Pro Tools, like $40,000 deck that they have.
Right, but that's essentially, is that at that point, is that doing just what the MIDI controller is doing, or is that desk actually doing some DSP?
Well, both in the case of the bigger ones.
Think of MIDI as just a signal. It's just parameters. So if you turn a dial, it sends a MIDI signal, which is altered by 4.
Yeah, so the question is,
and the software does what you apply, what you have told it to.
Like using the MIDI controller to use Lightroom. Yeah. So the question is, these massive desks, are they just doing that, or have they got like hardware DSP built in that will actually?
If you see all the racks that they have,
one at a time.
You go, Jess.
It depends.
Right.
It's hardware and software.
Okay.
And you get software